Oh, wouldn't it be nice if we could keep all of the money we receive as payments from our customers? Well, unfortunately, that is very rarely the case. If they purchased a product, we will need to reorder that product in order to keep our inventory levels sustainable. If we have any type of office space or employees, we will need to pay for items necessary to maintain them as well. That is why there are different designations like sales income, gross profit, and net profits in accounting. The money that we make as income simply isn't 100% ours to keep when it comes down to the accounting processes. Those numbers are important. So, yes, it is very uncommon for a business to never have any bills to pay. Fortunately, other than the pain of having to give up the money, the process of entering and paying bills is fairly straightforward in QuickBooks. First, we need to enter bills when we receive them, and then we need to pay them when they are due. Just like a sales receipt for a cash sale, we certainly could come to the bottom right corner of the screen from the home screen and just write a check. But unfortunately, that is probably not going to provide the amount of record keeping that we want. This does not allow us to receive bills throughout the month and then pay them at a later time. And if we only wrote a check when we paid them, we would not have an accurate record of our accounts payable. In other words, we would never know what our current liabilities were for any given time. Instead, when we receive a bill for something that is not related to inventory, we want to use the Enter Bills option either from the home screen or from the vendor's menu. When we create a bill, we can do so for items that are physical things that our business buys, or we can attribute them to an expense, which are all of the things that we spend money on, like utilities or internet service. We covered how to order and receive inventory in another chapter. Now we want to focus on and enter bills for things that we have like services rather than items. The process is very similar to many of the other things we do. First, we need to select a vendor. And in this case, we're going to choose one for Bayshore Water because this is our water bill. QuickBooks populates everything that it needs to. We need to make sure that it is all currently accurate, including the remittance address and also the terms. If we receive any type of discount by paying by a certain date, that should be entered as well, so QuickBooks can help us make sure that we pay only what we have to. On the top right of the window, we want to make sure that the date actually matches the date of the bill. If it's currently the 15th, the bill may have been sent out and dated for, say, the 10th. We can also put in a reference number that would be the reference number from our vendor, such as an invoice or a statement number. Then we need to enter the amount due, that of course is going to be on the bill we received. In this case, our water bill is $243.20. Notice that QuickBooks has already updated the bill due date. We said it was due in 30 days, but we also say that the bill was dated the 10th, not the 15th, which is when we received it. Therefore, it's due on the 9th of January. If we choose to enter a memo, the memo will appear in our accounts payable register and also on our reports that include that bill. If we entered an account number when we set up the vendor, the account number will automatically appear in the memo field. If not, then QuickBooks will put the memo that we write here on the check when we pay the bill. In case you're curious, the memo field can actually have a little over 4,000 characters, so there's plenty of room to write a little bit of detail. Now we need to designate what this expense is for, and that's going to be at the bottom of the screen. If there was a mixture of expenses and items, for example, if we went to an office supply store, then we may have both expenses and items. In this case, it's a utility bill and only has expenses. We have to designate an account, and this happens to be a water bill. So we will scroll down through our accounts that are in the chart of accounts, and we have a category specifically for utilities and specifically for the water bill. The amount has already been filled in, and then we can choose to add a memo for each individual expense. We might enter December water usage. Now, this type of memo may not be necessary because this is kind of obvious, but for other types of bills, we definitely may want to designate what individual items were for. We can attribute the expense to a particular customer or job, and even to a class. But once we have itemized everything out, we simply click or tap Save and Close at the bottom of the window. Entering bills is an important part of our bookkeeping and accounting processes. It lets us know what monies are owed, even if they haven't been paid yet. By not paying bills immediately when they are received, we optimize our processes by paying bills usually once a month or so, but also we keep cash in the business, which helps us with cash flow to meet other requirements. Of course, there will come a time when we need to actually pay those bills. This can be done from the right side of the home screen, or of course from the vendor's menu. by bringing up the Pay Bills window. We can choose whether we want to pay bills that are due on or before a certain date, or just to show all of the bills that are currently due. We can also filter by a variety of criteria on the right side of the screen. Now it's simply a matter of selecting the bills that we've entered that we actually want to pay. Let's say that we're going to go ahead and pay our AAA interior supply as well as our Bayshore water bill. QuickBooks shows us all of the information we need, including if there's a discount date, the current amount that is due, if we have any discount, and if we have any credits. And then, of course, it tells us how much we're going to pay. If, for example, there was some reason we didn't want to pay our entire water bill, even though it was $243 and a few odd cents, maybe we're just going to pay $200. The actual amount we want to pay on a bill is in the very last column of the screen. If we have any questions, we can go to the bill using the button on the bottom left of the screen. We can also work with any discounts or any credits that may be available. Near the bottom, we need to designate the actual date we want to make the payment, as again, the date we want to pay it may not actually be the day we're entering the payment. We can choose the payment method, which in this case will be a check, and because it is a check, we can either say we need to print it and use whatever the consecutive numbering is, or if we're going to handwrite a check, we can assign a specific check number. This is QuickBooks, and that means accounting, and it means that we have to tell it where the money is going to come from. In this case, we're going to be taking the money to pay these bills out of the checking account. We can even make sure that there's enough money in the account to pay the bill, which is always a good idea. When we're finished, we'll click or tap Pay Selected Bills on the bottom right of the screen. As soon as we save and close, QuickBooks is nice enough to give us a payment summary window that does just that. It gives us a summary of everything that we've designated. We can see both of the bills that we paid and the amount, and it gives us the option to pay more bills or to go ahead and print checks. We want to get all of these accounts payable taken care of, so we're going to go ahead and click or tap Print Checks. But know that we also could have done this at a later time by going up to File, Print Forms, and then choosing the Checks option. Whenever we print checks, we need to determine which checking account we're going to take it from, which is from a drop-down at the top. QuickBooks will also increment to the next check number, and we could overwrite this, but generally we do tend to write checks in numerical order, so we probably don't need to modify this at all. If, for whatever reason, we do not want to print all of the checks at once, we can select or deselect checks to be printed using the check marks in the left-hand column. When everything is ready to go, we click or tap OK, and we're presented with the window that lets us select the printer to which we want to print the checks. This, of course, is very important to make sure that we have check stock in the printer and that they're going to print correctly. We can choose the type of checks, including voucher checks, standard business checks, or wallet checks, how many copies of a check we may want to print, and if we need to print the company name, address, logo, or signature image on the check as well. Having a signature image means we don't have to actually sit down and sign all of these checks. We can electronically print signatures on checks, including paychecks, by storing a signature image file and configuring it when we print the checks, like we're seeing here. In order to use this feature, we need to have an image that represents our signature, and this can be done by simply writing our signature on a blank piece of paper and scanning it in. QuickBooks will then resize it to be 2 3/4 inches wide by 3/4 inches tall, and it will be placed above the signature line on the checks when you print them. This can be set up by accessing the File menu, going to Printer Setup, choosing Check or Paycheck, and then put a check mark next to the Print Signature image. Then you'll be asked to select the image file, and that's all you'll need to do. Then this feature will be available for you anytime you print checks. It's kind of exciting and really an advancement that makes sense these days. Paying bills and writing checks may not be the most enjoyable part of being a business, but it is necessary, and QuickBooks simplifies what could otherwise be a cumbersome and time-consuming process.